12 years ago. And so I volunteered, and that was a crazy year. Like, we rotated first through 2 different shifts. And so this was actually this was right around 2010, right as we're coming out of the recession of 2008. So you're planned for low volumes, and we ramped up super fast. So we were just building cars like crazy. And here I am, this new manager, learning how to manage. I had 130 people under me. I had 5 supervisors, and they each had about 25 people under them. And we're basically manufacturing. I was in charge of the trim, or the back half of the Nissan Pathfinder assembly line. So if you own or drive a Pathfinder from 2011, I built that. 50% chance, right? So it was, it was a crazy, hard, difficult, but super, super important year where I learned a ton, right? So, and then from there, I had one of the most radical job changes in the history of Nissan, which is when I was working with the HR people, I'm like, hey, my year's almost up. What are some other opportunities of where I can go? They're like, oh, well, there's this new, Japan is wanting to come to California and open up this new research center around this new technology called autonomous vehicles. And they're looking for an operations manager to help start it up and run it. Now, because I had moved around to a lot of different jobs, right? I had contacts in finance. I had contacts in sales and marketing. I had contacts in quality engineering. Oh, I skipped one of my jobs, which was parts inspection, and then problems in supplier quality, right? So, and I'll get to some lessons learned. David, if it's okay, I'm gonna, after I finish my story, I'm gonna do a couple of lessons learned, and then we go to Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So, I went to, I basically went and met with the guy from Japan, and they said, yeah, come out to California. And so it was me and 2 guys from Japan, and we started this research center. So I went from like night shift manufacturing to running a research center in Silicon Valley, Sunnyvale, California, as the operations manager. And it was crazy, but it was also another amazing learning experience. I was there for 6 years. I also got involved running my own research team around connected vehicles. And then around that time, it was, I'd been there long enough. It was time to look at another role within Nissan. But by this point, my family was somewhat settled in Silicon Valley. And so I looked at options to stay in the area instead of going elsewhere. And that's when I applied for and took a job at Google. And then at Google, I was in Google Cloud, where I helped them set up operations and organize as they were growing really fast. Then I ran an innovation fund, like an internal innovation fund, like a VC fund internal at Google, not investing externally, but investing in engineers' ideas internally. And then I did is like the experimental product arm for Gemini, for DeepMind.
Great.
Am I cutting out?
Yeah, you cut out can you skip back about 15 seconds?
Okay. Yeah, it gave me a low bandwidth warning. Hold on, let me make sure it's working. Yeah, so my current role is in Google Labs, which is the experimental arm or experimental product arm for Gemini or DeepMind, Google DeepMind. Did that come through?
Yep.
Okay, let's see how it goes. Okay, so that's my basic story. So let me open up my my lessons learned. So here's some things that they may or may not apply to you, right? My experience says that they're true principles that would apply to anyone. Okay, so the first is this might seem like it's coming way out of left field, but I plugged this into Gemini, so it must be right. Okay, and that is frugality creates flexibility. Okay, when you graduate from engineering school and get a job, I don't know what they're paying nowadays. You get your $1 million a year check. It's going to be very tempting to immediately upgrade your lifestyle. And the problem is when you do that, you do a step function change in lifestyle, which immediately removes the flexibility you have as a student, right? And so part of the reason I was able to be in a rotation program and be able to move around is my family and I, we stayed in, we stayed in smaller houses or smaller apartments. We never upgraded too fast. And so when they came calling for a role in California, a lot of my friends would have loved to do that. But I went from a 3-bed, 2-bath house in California or in Tennessee to a 3-bed, 1-bath, 1,100 square foot house in California that was like $4,500 a month rent, right? And so, like, if you're used to a 5-6 bedroom house in Nashville, you're not, like, you basically limited yourself. He's made it very difficult to be flexible and make changes. And so that's one thing that kind of came out of my interest in being flexible, right? Is keeping my lifestyle just slowly improving, slowly incrementing over time, and never doing any big steps, regardless of whatever big bonus I might have gotten, right? Another principle, prioritize learning. Like I told you about, I had a mentor say, take the job nobody wants. Like that job that I took, I mean, there is nobody else at Google that was an assembly line manager on night shift, right? Nobody else. And none of them would want to do it now, right? But the fact that I've done it is something that makes me unique and always will, because I chose a job that I purposely went and chose a job that nobody else wants. And by definition, you now have a rare advantage, a unique experience that others aren't going to have. Way too many people go right out of school and they try to get the most prestigious job they can, right? Whether it's on Wall Street or whether it's in consulting or whether it's at Google, to be honest. And that's great, but I feel so bad for those people, because where are they going to go next, right? It's so much better to take like the ugliest, hardest, highest learning curve job you can right out of school, and then take that and change jobs and leverage it elsewhere, right? There's a whole book called Change Your Job and Get a Raise. That's one of those books you don't have to read to know what it says. Like every time you change companies, you're almost always going to get a pay increase. And so really, rather than focus on what is going to get me to climb the ladder the fastest, focus on which of these roles am I going to learn the most that will benefit me in the future. Okay. That's one thing I've learned, which may or may not apply to you. And a similar principle here is embrace a breadth first strategy. There's a book called Range by David Epstein, and he very much counters the 10,000 hour rule from the book Outliers. And that rule is that the 10,000 hour rule is a thing when it comes to very simple skills that you're trying to learn. When it comes to a complex world, you're actually better off getting a wide breadth of abilities, right? So do you need to specialize in engineering? Absolutely you do. But part of the reason why is you learn to go deep. You learn to understand details. You learn to problem solve, right? And then maybe you go get a master's degree and keep going deep. But then you learn to broaden and broadly apply that. So protect your time and embrace discomfort. So I mentioned I had 130 people report to me at Nissan. And then in the research center, I ran the research center of like 80 people. At Google, I actually don't have anyone reporting to me right now, which is a little weird, right? In some ways, I kind of took a step down to come to Google. But again, like it is amazing to take a job at Google, show up, they are paying me more than where I came from, to learn about computer science, to learn about technology, to learn about cloud. I'm getting paid. Like I'm in all these meetings. I am the dumbest one in the room because I don't know what Google's been doing for the last 10 years. And it's uncomfortable. Like if you have to feel like you're the smartest person in the room all the time, then you are actually going to be at a disadvantage. So it's actually still uncomfortable to this day. Like there will be times I'll be in a room and I'm like, I feel like the dumbest person in the room, but you have to remind yourself, this is part of my strategy. Like I am getting paid to learn from all these people, right? The other part that's uncomfortable about it is when you make these horizontal moves to other companies, is you're not going to get to be VP by the age of 35, and many of your friends will be. Are you okay with that? Right? Do you have the humility that when you and your friends are all at a party and your wife says, this is my husband. He's a senior program manager, and everyone else is like, oh, this is my wife. She's the CEO of ABC. Is my volume messing up? Hold on. Right. Or then if you're not secure in your strategy, you might feel, you might hurt your self-esteem. So I'm just calling these risks out. These are things that happen. On the other hand, when my Nissan career coach asked me, do you want to be VP of supply chain or do you want to be VP of marketing? And I said, I don't want to be either. They're very frustrated with that. They don't know what to do with somebody that wants to go breadth first, right? And it turns out it was a good thing I didn't, because that opened up opportunities to be in autonomous vehicles. There was no such thing as autonomous vehicles when they asked me that question in 2010. And there was no such thing as AI product manager, what I'm doing now, when I was asked that question in 2010, right? So by kind of focusing on maximizing my learning, I really opened up opportunities that I would have otherwise missed. So, and then one other thing that'll be done, then we can do Q&A, David, which is actually two other things. One is Be So Good They Can't Ignore You. This is a book, highly recommend it, which is, again, like, I'm not worried about my title. I'm worried about being useful as a person, right? As an engineer, as a manager, I want to be very good at what I do, and I'm going to focus on doing that, okay? And I'm going to focus, like I said, and learning at whatever role that I'm in. And as long as you do that, you will always be in demand. And what the book talks about, it says, be so good they can't ignore you. What will happen when you start to be very valuable to the company, they will want more and more of your time. And I would play soccer and basketball at lunchtime. And I noticed that most of my friends, when they got promoted to director, we would never see them again at basketball and soccer. Okay. That is not, it is not a requirement if you're a director or VP to skip lunchtime basketball and soccer, if that's what you want to do. But a lot of people felt like it was, because they felt like the company was somehow doing them a favor by promoting them, and they had to prove that they deserved that promotion. That is folly, as the book says, right? You are the one in charge of you, and I will take this promotion on these terms, and I'm doing a favor to you, the company, by taking this promotion, not the other way around. So I would keep that in mind. Okay. And then there's a bamboo method of growth, which is bamboo roots go out for years and you don't see any growth above. And then suddenly the bamboo shoots up, right? You have such a stable foundation of learning that when the opportunity presents itself that you want, you're the obvious choice, right? Because you haven't focused on climbing the ladder as much as you focused on developing your own expertise and your own value. And then the last thing is relentless persistence. I didn't get into MIT the first time I applied. I did the second. I had to apply like 10 times to Google. I had to ask my wife to date me like 8 times. And we had to be friends for 5 years before she's like, okay, maybe you're worth marrying, right? So like persistence takes the place of almost any other skill, right? Now, don't be a stalker and don't say, Greg Dibb told you to be a stalker. Like, there are lots of very good documents out there about how to be a respectful person. But the principle of being persistent and patient, right, and is a true principle. And then the final thing, David, thank you for reminding me that I'm on the board of the Reach Foundation. Like, there's a great book by Clayton Christensen called How Will You Measure Your Life? Okay, and the temptation that I've already alluded to, the temptation of everyone, is there are more immediate returns when you invest in career than there are when you invest in relationships, or when you invest in family, or you invest in your 2-year-old at home. So because the returns on that time and investment are long term. And if you only focus on short-term returns and you only invest in short-term career things, then you will find those other long-term things fall apart 10, 20, 30 years down the road, right? And so Clayton Christensen takes his theory of management. He's probably the second most famous Harvard Business School professor, next to Porter. And he wrote this book on how we measure life. He takes his theory of management and applies it to life and says, you have to be deliberate in the investment choices you make in your own life. How are you investing your time, your talents, and resources, and you bucket them. So I have coached, like, I think my greatest accomplishment, my greatest management accomplishment was winning Little League last year. Okay. I've coached my kids. I have 4 kids. I've coached their teams. When you know you have to leave at 5 to go coach baseball, you find ways and you fit it in. You still can do a great job at work, right? If you think that by staying another hour or 2 or 3 is going to make a difference for your career or for your work, it may or may not, but it will most certainly make a difference in the other buckets that you were neglecting in your life, right? And so for me, I've tried to do that through church. I've tried to do that through community. The Reach Foundation is one of those things. So, all right, those are my lessons learned. Let's do Q&A.
Just
Yes, sir.
You guys can probably see why Greg and I stay connected. He talks very much like I talk. We're like, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you so much for your time. All right, Aaron, you go.
Hi, I'm Aaron. Thank you for your talk. My question is about, what's the defining point where you think, okay, I've done all this learning now I'm ready to take all these opportunities. Where do you draw that line?
That's a good question. That's a good question, because one of the dangers of just moving around a lot, like I've done, is it can feel like you're shirking responsibility a little bit, right? Like like when I managed 130 people, that's a hard job. And, and in that case, in that case, I took it and I got the leadership experience. But like I said, right now, nobody's reporting to me. I think what you need to be careful of is looking for those opportunities to learn, but they're actual learning opportunities, both by growth and by content or by topic. And the other thing that I've done is is like look for leadership opportunities outside of work also, right? So like I'm on a board. I'm on some city committees. I run some things in nonprofits, right? So I'm always looking for those opportunities. I don't know. I think the key is not to look for a position, but to look for an opportunity, I would say. It's a great question, Aaron. Yes.
Hi, my name is Omar. So I'm a data science student, and you mentioned that you worked at Google Labs and that you were learning a lot from the people that you were working with. Is there anything that you wish that you could like teach them, or that if you hear them talk about something and go, oh, maybe like if you knew this manufacturing concept or whatever, that could improve their work? And what is it about them that makes you like want to like talk to them and learn more?
Okay, I think you said, so you're a data science student, which is what I have pushed my daughter and my and some of my mentees to do, data science. And you said, what is it about maybe the engineers that I work with or the data scientists I work with that I would want to push them to understand from what I've learned in my background? Is that what you asked? So much. And what you find happens in meetings is I'm in a meeting. I'm learning front end, back end. Okay, that's how we run things at Google. Like I'm seriously learning all this while getting paid, right? It's really remarkable. But then we run into something where we're trying to decide where to take the product or how to run our organization. And what seems obvious to me, I realize, oh, that's something they don't know. And suddenly I feel like the smartest person in the room occasionally. And that's where what I hope I do well, because of the multiple different jobs that I've had, is I do my best to translate, hey, like so let's imagine that we're building something and we're doing this same thing every 1 minute, every 60 seconds. How would that, right? Like how would doing that cause problems in that scenario? A little bit of a Socratic method, right? Is ask these questions. Now you got to be careful because people are going to get sick of my assembly line analogies if I don't do too much. But that's the part of being able to say, to just kind of extract the core principle and do it in a Socratic way. Again, it helps because they know I'm the dumbest one in the room, that I can do it by asking questions. But in a way, I add an impact that none of the other software engineers are going to add because they haven't had a similar experience, right? So I'm bringing diversity in that way. And if you do it in a humble, hey, how about this Socratic method? That's the way I do it. But if I were to preach, it would definitely be around like operational excellence and what I learned in manufacturing. So, and if you're familiar with Agile, I don't know if there's any software engineers here, but if you're familiar with Agile methodology, yeah, Agile, I did my thesis at Harley Davidson on the factory floor, and Agile is completely based on the Toyota production system and lean manufacturing. So the principles are very similar. So I'm able to kind of ramp up on Agile and then leverage my background in that same way. So. Yes.
Hi, Greg. My name's Zach. I'm a industrial engineering student, and I'm curious, like with your time at Nissan, like what some of the different challenges are from going, like working in the manufacturing operation where like you have to just like make as many cars as possible to pivoting to the like research lab where you're more focused on like forwarding like innovative ideas and things like that. What are some of the unique challenges there?
I mean, it's definitely challenging. Turn this down, but it's a lot of fun to make changes like that. So I think the key is to be reflective on every role that you have, and probably monthly sit down and be like, hey, what am I learning? Am I plateauing in this role? But what am I learning in this role? What are some true principles that I'm learning? And then what are some challenges that I have now? And what principles have I learned in the past that I can apply here? So one of the things I did at the research center is we developed something called the lean research methodology, which, as you can imagine, was very much based on lean manufacturing. And has anyone heard of the book Lean Startup? Yeah, Lean Startup by Eric Ries is a fantastic book. He's one of the few books on lean that I have read where I thought, oh, he actually gets how it works. Like, he's taken the true principles from real lean manufacturing and applied them really to any business or job that you have. And so, yeah, so obviously reading and staying on top of these things always has helped me to apply to whatever role that I'm in. But that's what I've tried to do.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead. Cody, just jump in.
Oh, hello. I'm on Zoom, but what would you tell engineers what other skills outside STEM they should learn and be aware of?
I mean, yeah, so inside STEM, of course, just basic problem solving and coding would be great. I wish I would have done more coding in college. Now it's debatable how much coding you should do. I think with AI, you still want to be very comfortable with doing some coding, at least reviewing code, implementing code, deploying code. I think it's still something that's important to learn. AI is going to be doing so much of that for us, but just being familiar with it is important. But outside of STEM, I mean, two things I can think of. One is I don't watch TV. I only subscribe to an occasional streaming service once in a while to see what's interesting, and then I cancel it and see if they offer me a cheaper plan, and then I probably cancel it anyway. But there are some culture things, right? Like just like I love Broadway plays. I do enjoy some popular music with my kids. We do watch some shows and movies, but we don't binge watch. As much as I can, I avoid that. So there are a few cultural conversations that I miss out on, but not many. Because I do, I bring this up because you said no STEM, like enjoying like my family and enjoying culture. And I also do a lot of sports. Not only do I coach, but I also play a lot. I try to get a lot of exercise. And like it helps you be a friend, and it helps you have a good sense of humor, and it helps you be familiar with the really complex people issues and cultural issues, right, that exist and that happen. And I mean, it can be argued. I love being an engineer. I'm pushing all my kids to be engineers. It can be argued that the distinguishing knowledge from an LLM, from a Gemini, in some ways might be your people connections and your ability to connect to people and understand people and the more arts side of life than STEM. So you definitely have to stay balanced on non-STEM stuff for sure. And sense of humor. I mean, anytime you can laugh at yourself and laugh at what you're doing just makes it better for everybody involved.
I'm Aaron again. With your like automotive vehicle foundation, I'm curious if you ever have you ever collaborated with Waymo?
Oh yeah. Yeah. In fact, I very first interviewed at Waymo before. And so when I applied, I was applying to Waymo and Google Cloud at the same time. And what you'll find is sometimes there's a new hot thing like cloud was 6-7 years ago. And you think, oh, I missed that. No, you probably haven't missed it. When cloud became the new fast growing thing, there weren't a bunch of cloud experienced people out there. There weren't enough to fill all the roles that were expanding. So I went and I applied to cloud and I applied to Waymo, which is where I thought my autonomous vehicle background would be much more helpful. But it turns out they weren't growing as fast. Now they're growing a little more now, but they weren't growing as fast at the time, which is why before I even heard back from Waymo, I basically had an offer from Google Cloud. And again, like in my mind, I knew I would learn more at Google Cloud because I didn't know anything about cloud, right? And I tricked them into hiring me. So here I was at Google Cloud learning, and they knew that when they're hiring people, there's not a ton of experts out there on cloud. Cloud's a new growing thing. So I was able to learn about it while getting paid about it. And I figured, hey, when they figure out I don't belong here and kick me out, then I'll go to Waymo, where I've got a stronger background. It turns out they never kicked me out. So I have not yet gone to Waymo. I might still do it at some point because I've been away. I do miss, I had so much, I was 15 years at Nissan. So I have a lot of automotive background. But for now, I'm having fun. Stitch is the product, by the way, that I manage. If I have time, how much, are we almost out of time?
No,
Okay. I can share and show my screen. Why don't we take one quick look here? So this is the product that I've been working on most lately.
This is the product that you're the product manager of?
Yeah, I'm technically the program manager, but there is a product manager, but they and I work very closely together. So let me allow this here. Okay. Uh-oh. I fat fingered my password. 1 second. Okay. This may or may not work.
Looking really good so far, Greg.
What's that?
It's looking great so far. Oh, it is.
Can you see this?
Yeah, yep.
Fantastic. Okay. Make an app that helps me decide which job to take, helps me rewrite custom resumes, and looks very flashy. Okay, now, not sure if I'm logged in, so I'm going to copy. Sometimes it loses my prompt. There we go. Okay. So, and then this product, so Google, so Stitch goes and uses the Gemini model to design an app. Now, this is just a user interface. It does not design a full functioning app quite yet. But what you can do is you can take these screenshots, you can modify them, you can export them into Figma, which is a very popular design tool. You can tweak it a little bit. Then you can import it to Google's AI Studio, or into another similar app making AI product, and actually like create an app, right? So while it's doing this one, I'll show you Hold on. Oh, it's already doing it. Here we go. See, so here it is. Level up your career. What's your next move today? Click here for job decider, resume architect. It shows me some stats that it's keeping. And then here's my decision engine. Do I go to the startup? Do I go to the tech company? Right. So this is, it just imagined this based on my 2-sentence prompt. Right. And so this is a product that we came up with here in Google Labs, and we launched, and we've got like 600,000 monthly users now in the lab. It hasn't even been a year. Right. And so I'm the program manager, which basically I basically run the team meetings. I run the goals and the projects, and I keep everything going. And again, along the way, I'm learning all about how Google runs, how Google works, how Google releases products, how we collect data, how we use models, how they tweak models, how they train these AI models. So it's pretty cool.
Great.
And again, this is called Stitch. You are all welcome to try it out. And you can come up here and you can export it, like I said, and take it to different places. So
I'm indexing on your comment about being looking at fields that are up and coming. So like Google Cloud was this thing that is growing, and there isn't a whole lot of people there. One of the things that I'm seeing is when I hear you say things like AI product management, right? That it wasn't a thing at all 2 years ago.
right.
How would students start looking into that? If that's like, yes, I see this as the next thing and I want to be a part of it, but I'm just a lonely undergrad, where should they start?
So, oh, sorry, I got my back there. Let me back up. So first, man, I'm jealous because today, like even more than ever, you can do whatever you want. Like there is nothing stopping you from being the world expert on any given thing, right? Because you don't even need to pay $20 a month for the premium access to Gemini, right? Like you can get enough free access at the library or at your personal laptop, plus YouTube. I mean, you can become the world expert on whatever it is you want to become. Now, one of the stories I was going to tell is when I was at Nissan, there was this kid that just loved Nissans. He loved Nissan Maxima. He'd had a Nissan Maxima. He worked on it all the time, and he called us all the time. He kept sending me emails asking if he could get a job at Nissan. And it's like, for crying out loud, this guy will not leave us alone. Let's find this guy a job at Nissan, right? And I mean, we had never met him. Like he seriously cold called us, but because he was so persistent and his dream was to have a job at Nissan, like we found him one, right? So now it helped that he truly had a passion for Nissan. He owned one. He was working on one. He was spending his spare time working on it and doing it, right? So I would say it's the same thing. And it goes back to that book, Be So Good They Can't Ignore You. Like if you just something that you really want to do, you dive yourself into that topic and you become the expert on it. You know about all the options, you've played around with them. Like then you don't have to worry about the politics of some hiring. Like you be so obviously the most knowledgeable and the best about the market out there and what the options are, and you go to meetup groups. And you know other people that are involved. You reach out to those that are creating stuff, and it doesn't take long. Seriously, within like a couple of months, you're probably 99th percentile of knowing what's going, like what the AI products are. And you might want to select a niche that you're interested in, but it's absolutely a possibility.
I am Yogita.
Okay, I can't quite hear.
I'm Yogita, and I was wondering kind of what you were talking about right now. If I were to explore like fields that I'm not really like I'm new to, how would I like go about doing that? Because obviously, if you have like an internship or job, you can like talk to like your boss or like manager to get like different positions. But if you want to like, I guess without prior experience, get it, like explore new fields, how would you go about that?
Yeah, so it depends on what the field is, but part of what I was saying about Gemini is, between Gemini and YouTube, like you can, well, whatever the field is, you can be an expert on that field in a few weeks almost. I mean, like I guarantee you, any of you could be in a month, like in your spare time, probably more of an expert on the vibe design market than I am, and that's my job, right? But because most of my job isn't actually digging into what's going on around me. Most of my job is running the product, and occasionally we check in and we try to make sure we're doing the right thing. But whatever that is, I mean, you can learn just by YouTube and Gemini. Be like, hey, how does this work? How does that work? Now, that's a very um, internal focused way to do it. But then also, of course, you can reach out to people that are willing to talk and tell you about what they're doing. You can volunteer. You can volunteer to go help. Or I know unpaid internships are actually tough, so it's better to probably meet with people and have them give you tours or show you around or tell you about what they've done. But definitely between those two things, I mean, just studying and being an expert and then reaching out to anybody you can find that is involved and learning from them. I find it hard to believe that, I mean, you got to be used to being rejected the first few times. Nobody gets the first thing they want the first time, or it probably really wasn't worth it. But you willing to endure a few rejections before you know it, you'd get exactly what you want is what I found. Did you have a specific one in mind? I'm curious.
I I asked because I'm still like deciding what to focus on because I'm
Yeah,
so
and that goes back to kind of what I said. That's partly why I signed up for the rotation program, is I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But my point, I hope my point has come across, that you don't plan on a lifetime career when you make a choice. I was told to plan on 3 20-year careers, and my life has been closer to, 1 2 3 4 6-year careers probably so far, right? I mean, that are almost different, because like I said, these new things emerge, and there are no experts on this new thing. So the people that are able to pivot and go over to that new thing are the people that have stayed relevant. They've continued to focus on being flexible and learning, and learning, like, just good problem solving skills that can apply anywhere. So I wouldn't worry so much about whether you go into the healthcare industry, or the hardware, or auto manufacturing, or semiconductor manufacturing, or AI. Like I said, I would actually try to pick one of the hardest ones to start, knowing that you can change, um, whenever you want, within a few years.
Hi, Greg. I'm Tom. I very much like the notions what you're talking about with like taking your skills somewhere new, like vastly different, and learning something new. And I was curious, you talked a little bit about like being uncertain and dealing with rejection when trying to enter those new fields. I was just wondering what for you personally makes it so that you stick to it, like autonomous driving and AI, instead of like after dealing with your first rejection, instead of just pivoting to something else that you may also be interested in, because you've stayed on top of a lot of these like big cutting edge things that are still growing. Like what keeps you like, oh, I do want to do this instead of finding something else.
Yeah, yeah. So knowing when to pivot. So the book Lean Startup talks a lot about that, is knowing when to pivot, and also when to give up, right? Um, if I could do it over, I would probably have left the Nissan Silicon Valley role earlier than the 6 years. Um, but it kind of became so obvious from where I was after learning everything. You know, Google's probably going to win this autonomous vehicle race, and you just learn that by, again, keep like it's not like an obvious thing out there, but once you talk to a few people and you kind of pay attention and you realize, and then I talk to my friends that work at Google, and you kind of learn, right? You kind of get the sense of that. It took me longer than I should have to pivot, but um, your question was also, is when should I quit, or when should you give up on that idea? I mean, you should treat every decision as an experiment, as Lean Startup talks about, and it would definitely be good to like have in your mind, this is this many rejections or this much data is new data that tells me maybe now's not the time. I think you could probably be honest with yourself about that. I do want to interject. My kids, of course, like all kids, want to be YouTube stars and occasionally want to be actors. And my son wants to be an astronaut. We ran the numbers. You're more likely to go do something in a new emerging industry, be successful there, and then buy your way in. Produce your own movie, build or pay for your own trip to space, or like seriously purchase or buy an existing YouTube channel. Like, if you actually look at numbers sometimes, and this is what I mean by using the scientific method and having an idea about what are the actual probabilities that this is going to work out, be real with yourself. And, because if someone said, I'm never going to give up and I'm going to move to LA and I'm going to be an actor without looking at the numbers and realizing, yes, you can do that if you like being poor, right? There's no shame in that. Like I say, I try to live as poor as possible, but I try to live poor on the expenses side, not on the income side. Okay. and so you definitely want to have a realistic understanding of the numbers and the probabilities. But I would say that most people, was it Aaron? I forgot the name. Tom. Yeah. I think most people, Tom, probably quit sooner than they should. Because just human nature, we get embarrassed by rejection and we want to avoid it. And so we don't grow as much as we should.
We're almost at time. Does anyone have like pressing questions?
David, let me show one thing real quick. I got to show you this. This is amazing.
Yes, please.
Hold on. Let's see if this works.
All right, let's talk about career advice for engineers.
Can you hear it? Okay. Like I told you, I talked to Gemini about my ideas about what to talk about today. Gemini made a doc. I uploaded the doc to Notebook LM and said, make a video. Okay. So Notebook LM made this based on basically the thoughts that I said to Gemini this morning in like 5 minutes time, right? Here we go. I won't take the full 6.
We're going to flip the script on pretty much everything you've probably been told. What if that big race to the top, the corporate ladder, what if it's actually holding you back? Let's get into it. So right out of the gate, let's just challenge this whole idea of the current to climb higher, but to build what here is that your degree, it's just a launch pad. It's not a life sentence. It's where you start for sure, but it absolutely does not have to be where you end up. Really strategic jumps into totally new arenas. Okay, so let's really unpack this. See, this isn't climbing one ladder. It's more like making a series of really strategic jumps into totally new arenas. Okay, so let's really unpack this. Super specialized. But the new goal on the right, that's all about learning. It's about being flexible, grabbing new skills, and getting a real breadth of experience.
So I'm just
huge opportunity at Nissan's research center out in Silicon Valley. But Move literally created a career opportunity. And then, all of a sudden, whoosh, it shoots up, growing incredibly fast. Your career can be just like that. Those years you spend building your root system of diverse skills, that's what's going to enable that explosive, nonlinear growth later on. So, how do you actually do this? First off, take the tough jobs. A mentor once said to take the job nobody else wants, so he became an assembly line manager. It was a brutal year, but the experience was priceless. Second, fight that pressure to specialize too early. A career coach was so frustrated that he wouldn't just pick one single track to the top. Really, truly means. This powerful question comes from the late, great Harvard professor Clayton Christensen. And he's really pushing us to think beyond the quick wins of a career, to think about the ultimate scoreboard for a life well lived. So here's the core of his idea. You become ruthlessly efficient during the day. You cut out all the noise and you focus only on what actually matters. Your personal boundaries can make you better at your job. Okay, so let's pull all these ideas together.
Okay, pretty cool, huh? So this is, you should definitely try out Notebook LM. It basically made those slides, the whole video, all in like 10 minutes. So again, I'm super excited. The future is bright. You have so much opportunity in front of you. I hope that some of what I said has been helpful. And let me stop that. And yeah, if you want to reach out, I'm happy to answer any individual questions.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, we're at time. Greg's obviously super important. We don't want to hog all this time. So, Greg, we did thank you so much for your time. This has been fantastic. The students all have your LinkedIn profile, and Greg, you said reach out. Please reach out. Right? Let's thank you, Greg. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you.
Talk soon.
Yep. Bye, David.
That was so great.